Well, this is Radio TV Phono Nut, and we have a talking book record player from the early 60s. Move some junk out of the way so I can open it. This is a model AD-4 and was made by Westinghouse. These were loaned to the blind and visually impaired for the purpose of playing Library of Congress talking books. This is one of the older 2-speed models, 16 RPM and 33 RPM. It's sort of hard to find these older 2-speed models in their original form because most of them were later fitted with 3-speed motors when the 8 RPM talking books came along. Now, some of these 2-speed machines actually had 4-speed motors in them, but they had a stop pin to prevent the speed selector from being moved to the 45 or 78 position. This one, however, doesn't have that. It has just a customized 2-speed mechanism, so all it'll ever play in its original state is 16 and 33. Okay, let's fire it up and see if anybody's home. Before we fire it up, we'll sort of give it the once-over. We're missing a round knob here for the tone and motor off on. That should be no problem to fix or to find. And we're also missing the plug-in cartridge. The label calls for an static 85D. 83D will substitute for it, and I have some of those, so that won't be a problem. All right, let's power it up and see what happens. And it sounds like nobody's home. Not hearing any motor hum or any amplifier noise or anything of the sort. So I guess we'll open it up and see what's wrong. Here's the amplifier, and it's a very well-built unit, as you can see. Notice we're missing one tube, a 12AX7, but that shouldn't prevent the unit from being dead. And finding one of those shouldn't be a problem. Now, on something like this, the possibilities that could cause a totally dead condition are going to be limited to just a few things: the power cord, the circuit breaker, or the power switch. And we can check all three of those with an ohm meter. Well, I don't know what that was about. Everything checked good. Plugged it up a second time, and now it's come to life. So let's find a tube and see if we can get some action out of this. Here's my stash of guitar amplifier tubes. A friend of mine who used to work for a company who repaired guitar amplifiers gave me these tubes. He said most of them are good, but it was situations where the owners insisted that it would sound different with new tubes in it, so he said to appease the owner we would always install new tubes, and even though we couldn't tell the difference, they claimed they could. So he said, here's all the pulls. So let's see if there's a 12AX7 in here. I bet this is one right here. Yep, 12AX7 Sovtek. Let's go install it and see what happens. One of the nice things about these units are these tube retainer springs here. In fact, I wished all tube electronics such as this had those types of retainers. Now, a lot of the Japanese stuff had them, but for some reason the Americans didn't feel the need to use them. And these record players traveled a great bit through the mail. That's how most of them were delivered to their recipients. And without these tube retainers, it would be very easy for the tubes to fall out of the sockets during shipping. So let's put a cartridge in it and see what happens. Okay, I hear noise in the speaker. We have output. Let's see if the platter rotates. 33 and 16. Here's a regular LP. Let's see what happens. Not bad. I think our no power problem was due to the plug not making contact in this outlet. I need to replace these old loose receptacles in my variable isolation transformer. Here's an example of some records that would have been played on this machine. These are 10-inch, 16 RPM, and these are the older 12-inch, 33 1/3 RPM that was in use from 1934 up until the late 50s, early 60s when they started phasing in the 16 RPM. Now the early 12-inch records used a wider groove, something similar to a 78, and sometime in the 50s they went to a micro groove format. I have a bunch of these types of records that one of my YouTube subscribers sent me. There was a blind school somewhere in his area that was about to toss all of their old talking book records into a dumpster, and he rescued them, and he's been very generous to send me some of them, and I'm very much appreciative of them. All right, let's give this a little demonstration with something that was meant to be played on. And these have guides for the 12-inch records. The later machines had movable guides for both 10-inch and 12-inch records.
More Tales from Grimm, translated by Wanda Gog. Copyright 1947 by the estate of Wanda Gog. Recorded in 5 records for the Library of Congress in the studios of the American Printing House for the Blind, 1960. Intended solely for the use of the blind with the kind permission of the publishers, Coward McCann Incorporated. Read by Bert Blackwell. Table of Contents. The Seven Swabians, page 1. The Wolf and the Fox, page 1. Mother Holla, page 1. The Water Nixie, page 2. The Mouse, the Bird, and the Sausage, page 2. Thorn Rose, page 2. The Sweet Porridge, page 2. The Little Shepherd Boy, page 2. The 12 Lazy Servants, pages 2 and 3. Lucky Scraps.
And now a 10-inch, 16 RPM disc.
The Dreyfus Affair, A National Scandal, by Betty Schechter. Copyright 1965 by Betty Jane Schechter. Recorded for the Library of Congress in the Talking Book Studios of American Foundation for the Blind Incorporated with the kind permission of the publisher, Houghton Mifflin Company. Solely for the use of the blind. Read by Guy Sorrell. Listeners are requested to keep these talking book discs clean and in order. About the author. Betty Schechter grew up in New York City and worked for 3 years in the United Nations Information Office after her graduation from Smith College.
When I have some more time to devote to this, I'll give it a proper full restoration, but right now it's working pretty good. And this is the instruction record that you would have gotten with this machine if you were a talking book user back in the early 60s.
Instructions for talking book users. Each side of this record contains exactly the same material. Side 1, the Braille side, is recorded at a speed of 33 1/3 revolutions per minute. Side 2 is recorded at a speed of 16 2/3 revolutions per minute.
Okay, that ought to about do it for this time. And to the person who sent me this machine, you know who you are. I'm very much thankful for it, and it will get a proper restoration in the not-too-distant future. And also to the person who's been sending me the talking book records. I'm most appreciative of those as well. They'll make a very nice addition to my collection.
The wear and tear is inevitable. It is therefore important that the user of the machine be able to recognize commonplace troubles and to learn what steps need to be taken. Here are some of